Okay, you guys, we're now going to start back with step 7 in the accounting cycle. An adjusted trial balance is prepared. We've actually already completed that step up here on the worksheet. Our adjusted trial balance is right here. So we should be able to prepare it now, though, from the updated ledger totals, and then we could check it by this one if we'd like. But let's go through our ledger totals and do the adjusted trial balance. It's just another trial balance that's prepared after the adjusting journal entries have been posted to the ledger. And the numbers on it should be correct for our financial statements, which we'll complete in step 8. Okay, so let's go down to our template. Here we go. Our adjusted trial balance, we'll start with cash. And let's go back up to the ledger and find that balance. The cash balance from the ledger was a debit of $12,000. Supplies is a debit for $7,500. We'll put debit balances in the debit column, of course. $12,000 for cash, $7,500 for supplies. Prepaid insurance, let's find it, and equipment. Prepaid insurance is a debit balance for $1,800. Equipment's a debit balance for $110,000. Okay, and then I think we'll come back to the credit column for accumulated depreciation on equipment. Accumulated depreciation for equipment, the credit balance of $33,350. Trucks and accumulated depreciation on trucks. Trucks is a debit balance for $60,000. Its accumulated depreciation is a credit for $21,200. Okay, then we want accounts payable and wages payable. Accounts payable is a credit balance for $4,000. Wages payable, a credit balance for $600. Capital stock and retained earnings should both have credit balances. Capital stock, $26,000. Retained earnings, $70,000. All right, our dividends account. And we'll pick up service revenue while we're there as well. Dividends should have a debit balance, service revenue, a credit balance. Dividends, a debit balance for $15,000. Income summary has no balance, so we don't have to pick it up. Service revenue, a credit balance for $160,000. So dividends was a debit balance for $15,000. Service revenue or credit balance for $160,000. Now we'll just pick up our expenses. They'll all have debit balances. Let's go for wages expense and supplies expense. Wages expense is $45,600. Supplies expense $22,500. Next, we'll pick up rent expense and truck expense. Rent expense is a debit balance for $10,600. Truck expense is a debit balance for $9,000. Depreciation expense on equipment. $83.50. Depreciation expense on trucks, $6,200. Insurance expense and miscellaneous expense are our last two. A debit for $1,800 and a debit for $4,800. Picked up $1,800 and was it $4,800? Sorry. Okay. Now you guys, these are really just the same. This adjusted trial balance, we'd already completed it on the worksheet. We could have gone up here and picked up the numbers out of these two columns. We're going to pick them up here. So they should both total to $315,150. It's a good way for us to check and make sure we have everything right. But we'll use this worksheet a lot more in making closing entries and preparing the income statement and the balance sheet. But you guys, these adjusted trial balance numbers are the correct amounts that we now want to use on the financial statements. The unadjusted trial balance numbers had to be updated before they were used on the financial statements. We did that by adjusting journal entries and posting those to the ledger. So now these numbers are correct in what we'll want to use on step 8, preparing the financial statements. Well, first let's total both columns. 12,000 plus 7,500. Just going to add them all in. I try doing these tricks and it never works. Let's try again. 4,800 plus 315,150, which was our total up above on the worksheet. You can check and make sure it matches, but it does. Watch this. 315,150. And our credit column should total to that same amount. There we go. Okay, now these numbers are what we want to use on our financial statements. And that's the next step in the accounting cycle. An adjusted trial balance is prepared. We just did that. The next step, you've seen these already back in chapter 1. The next step is to prepare financial statements using our adjusted trial balance numbers. So let's go back and we'll start with those. The first one, remember, is the income statement. We'll start on the income statement with revenues. Well, our only revenue account is service revenue. And the amount we can pick up from our adjusted trial balance above. Service revenue was $160,000. So we'll enter it here. Okay, next we'll list expenses. Remember, those have to be listed greatest to least. The only exception is miscellaneous is always listed last. And you guys, it just so happens that's how they're showing up here. Now you might be able to copy these and paste them in here. I bet you can't, but let's try. No, you can't. Okay. Since it's a template, we can't do that. Okay, so let's list the largest expense here. And it was wages expense, $45,600. The next largest one is supplies expense at $22,500. We have rent expense at $10,600. Truck expense is $9,000. Not 900. We're just picking these numbers up, you guys, from our adjusted trial balance up above. Depreciation expense equipment is next. Its balance is $83.50. Depreciation expense trucks, $6,200. Insurance expense, $1,800. And miscellaneous expense, $4,800. All right, now we want to total our expenses. You guys, if you're not that familiar with Excel, or if you just prefer to, you could just punch those in your calculator, but they should total to 108,850. Now remember, back from chapter 1 on the income statement, we take total revenues minus total expenses, and if that's a positive number, it gives us net income. It is going to be a positive number here because 160,000 is greater than the 108,850, and that gives us net income of 51,150. Well, let's check that out with our worksheet. In our income statement columns, our net income, notice here, was 51,150. And our income statement really looks like these two columns. All right, so let's go back down. Take a look at it one more time. Our income statement is complete. You guys will start back the next video with the retained earnings statement. We'll try to finish up our financial statements and continue with the problem. Thanks.